Do I dare be even more direct in a world that claims it values honesty and yet runs from it every time it's expressed? In a world where politeness and civility and pretend interest is the norm of the day, where hypocrisy is considered preferred, actually, while at the same time advocating openness and honesty. We tell each other, hello, how are you? And then we don't really mean it. We pretend we're people we're not truly. We keep secrets, and then we talk about intimacy. This is the human condition. So yeah, why the hell not? I'll be more honest. And here's my honesty. It'll spill out of me with every video. Fear. Yes, we're all afraid. But some of us deal it differently from others. Some internalize it, some externalize it, some project it as hate of other, some project it as hate of self. Some come to terms with it. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's the control of fear. Some people think that courage is ignorance. For instance, they think that since they deny that there's any sharks in the water and they don't know that there's any sharks in the water and they jump in head first, that this is an indication of their courage, when in fact it's only an indication of their ignorance and their self-delusion, and sometimes of their stupidity. And then there's equality. Now that's a fucking joke. Equality? Then what is naturally selected if everything's the same? Equality is one of those other myths both conservatives and liberals ascribe to, in one way or the other. There is no equality. In fact, there's only diversity. There's only difference. Sameness is superficial. The further away you stand from something, the more it appears like something else. For instance, you can stand far away enough from a chimpanzee and it looks like a human. And if you get closer, you realize it's not. So you can stand far away from two twins and they appear exactly alike, and then you get closer and you see there's details that are different. They're not exactly alike at all. There's only difference in the world, not sameness. The harsh reality is most people don't deserve to be alive today. That they're alive because of a sheltering system, and that's why they're so desperate to protect it, to maintain it, to preserve it. That's why they're such staunch defenders of it, of its premises. Whatever it is, whatever principles are promoted, they could be born in Islamic culture and they're gonna be defending that. They could be born at any historical time and they'll be defending whatever principles exist at that time. That's what modernity is. You're always current. You consider what is current to be above. It's another delusion. The delusion of linear time. That is, what is ahead is superior to what is behind. And what is behind is inferior to what is present and what is yet to come. The past is always slandered in this way. Even if we see from history that there's, for instance, during the Dark Ages were far inferior culturally than, let's say, the Roman Age, even though the Roman Age was centuries before the Dark Ages. So we see there is no upward progression. Progress is a bullshit term. There's no continuous advancement. There's cycles. Everything goes into cycles. And today the cycle is one of decline in the West. And the first symptom of decline is the loss of control over the masses, particularly females. When males start losing control over their females, because females are a medium towards their destiny. Without females, the males have no destiny. So when males start losing control over their females, they stop losing they stop having a destiny. They stop having control over their destiny. Here's another bullshit term: free will. Contradiction in term, really. Free indicates independence. Will indicates a desire for something, a need for something. In other words, a lack of something. You can't be independent and dependent at the same time. Will is a misnomer. What will is a focus of aggregate energies upon an objective. The only way it could overcome its past, its determining past, is through what is called synergy. That is, by the focus of the aggregate energies upon the objective, the sum of the energies exceed the parts and become a far greater force. And this is the only way that the path of more resistance is often taken, rather than the more usual path of least resistance. But let's return back to these men children. Now, most of them know, they have an innate feeling that they're not up to their to the standard, that they're inferior to the average. They feel insecure, as they should. They know that they come from inferior stock, that their genes are inferior. Now, we're all weak, but again, to varying degrees. We're not equally weak. And by knowing this, they try to find ways to deal with it, to cope, to escape this reality, to come to terms with it. Some do come to terms with it. Others find escapist methods. They, like I said in the beginning, they take the insecurity and they project it outward as anger towards the other. They accuse others of what they feel that they're most guilty about in themselves. And this is a common method of dealing with insecurity. And before you princesses jump to conclusions and jump the gun, let me admit up front, all of this applies to me as well. All of it. But how much does it apply? I won't say. I leave that up to your judgment. Like I said, we're all weak because we're all human. We all need because we're all existing organisms. We're all afraid, but how we deal with this fear is not the same. So we're not equal in any way. We don't have the same energies, the same talents, the same courage, the same tolerance levels for suffering. Particularly in these times of sheltering, the tolerance levels of suffering have declined to the point where you get spoiled, pampered, prissy girls and little boys who can't handle anything above a certain pain level. And I'm not only talking about physical pain, but also mental pain. And this makes them even more vulnerable to external manipulation, because there's nothing more easily manipulated than fear. And this is what these MRAs are doing, and that's what feminists are doing, and this is what all political movements are doing. They manipulate fear. They take the weakness in the masses and they guide it. They give it a direction. They give it a foe. They give it an object they hate, and then, like sheep, they direct it. They become masters of it. If whoever has studied or has seen a documentary called Century of Self, it's a BBC documentary, I suggest you watch it. It explains the beginnings of marketing, what we call marketing. It explains how today's political and marketing ploys are based on Bernays, and Bernays was a nephew of Freud. So although some claim that Freud's insights have been overcome and debunked, they are still in use today as we speak. And we can see in today's materialism and hedonism this desire to immerse ourselves in things and sensations, to escape from ourselves, to forget who we are, to dismiss our past, to become totally given over to the present. In fact, living in the present is considered a value, when in fact it's a form of retardation. A dog lives completely in the present. You can beat a dog and then half a minute later it'll wag its tail at you. A fish, a goldfish, can swim around a small little fish bowl and think it's in the ocean. Short-term memory. That's why genius is always associated with madness. There's just too much to think about, too much to cope with. Sometimes it might break you. That's because a fine lens can sometimes shatter. So because we're repressed sexually, socially, even though we tell ourselves that we're free, because we associate our freedom with consumer choices, we think that because we have consumer choices that we're free, even if these choices are sometimes manufactured, as Chomsky would say. And to fill that void inside of us, we gather stuff, we buy stuff, we surround ourselves with stuff. Our job becomes our identification marker. Our car becomes a symbol of our virility. Our clothes becomes our second skin. We forget about our real skin, about our real selves. We shower ourselves with perfume, so the smell of our humanity disappears, gets drowned out. We bury everything in chemicals, so no worms, blemishes, our fruits, our vegetables, our meats come to us prepackaged, so that the slaughter of the animal is forgotten, it's ignored. We think meat comes like that it's made like that from nature. We go to parks and we think we're communing with something natural. We watch documentaries from a distance and we think we get it. Some of us turn to alcohol, to drugs, or to other forms of inebriation, like pleasure, flooding our brains with endorphins so that we escape ourselves, we lose ourselves in the sensation, even if for a moment. This is a form of escapism too. Schopenhauer associated pleasure as with a negative sensation. He claimed that need, suffering, was the normal state, which I agree with, and pleasure was the negation of it, the temporary alleviation of it. And this is the case, because as soon as one pleasure is done with, then the need comes back, and we need again and again, and our needs are never satiated. This is the condition of man, but not all men can take it, and not all women can take it. And this is the truth, because none of us are equal in any way and in any form. Ta-ta.